Cramp. It's only when I hold it for longer than I should. What's up, everybody? Well, I'm not gonna lie to you. This video is gonna suck, but it's gonna be healing. So this is something I haven't really told everybody yet. I think the Patreons are the only ones that have heard this story, and it's because I have to approach it with a lot of grace and caution within myself. I am someone who has to really work through things and not hold on to them as far as like feeling ashamed and guilty and just stuff like that, like we've been talking about. And I'm not baiting you at all when I tell you this story. So I put on a nice little background for us today. You guys have enjoyed the different backgrounds. And yeah, I got a see-through hat today, so you can see right through me. Look, if I go to the sun, oh, wait, it's backwards. I got the sun coming through my head. All right, so like I said, this is not a clickbait video. I don't clickbait you guys on anything, but I'm not kidding when I say that, yes, I have had personal experience in a religious cult, and no, it's not Chad Daybell, so do not try to clip me right now. It is not Chad Daybell, and I'm going to get into the specifics, and this is a really raw story in my life, very, very hard thing to talk about because it's embarrassing, and it's why I don't think I've ever explained the mission behind why we do this on this channel is talk about religious cults and why I have so much knowledge. I'm not just an observer, but I've been through some things myself. So, first thing I got to say, we in the stew. Wow. Let's try that one again. We in the stew, baby. And it's good to see all of you beautiful people. Yesterday was my daughter's 7th birthday, so we took yesterday to spend some time with her. And she went and got her hair cut, and she looks like she's just so much older, and yeah, we just took some good time with her. So today I really want to get into this topic because our conversations as of late have really obviously revolved around these things, these themes. And you know what? It comes in all forms, shapes, and sizes. And there's a reason why I'm so passionate about these cults. So back when I moved home from Rexburg, okay, I was obviously really lost and I was going through so much, and it was not fun, not a fun time. It was really the peak of before the trials and just the sitting feeling of like surviving, right? I had gotten a lot heavier, so I had a physical toll to me. I was just a shell of a human, I felt like. And this was when all those breakthroughs came through, like you're living in a graveyard and a bunch of parts of my life that were just there. And so, yeah, this is why I'm so passionate, and this is why we talk about this stuff all the time. So back in, I want to say this has to be 21. There was a life coach. I'm going to keep the names out of this. There was a life coach, and she was basically a life coach and Christian mixed. And that was kind of what I wanted at the time. Obviously, if you're going to get advice and you already are a believer, you're going to want your, coach to have similar values as you, and you want your coach to carry themselves a certain way. And if it's easier when you can bring God into it. So, she ran these things, these groups. And when she ran these groups, there were these big Zoom groups, and they were called boot camps. And these boot camps were her bringing in all these people and getting you signed in for boot camp. And a lot of people paid. We had ours for free, first time. So luckily, like financially, we just didn't even have anything financially to really give. And so this is where it was like, oh, here's this person that we just wanted to heal. So I'm going to start by saying this is where it all started, is the desire to heal. And this is where I think a lot of people get brought into these cults, is a genuine desire to do the right thing and a genuine desire from a part of your life. So I got into boot camp with her, and we're going over scriptures, and everything starts as usual, as normal. And she's very nice, and she's speaking life into my life, and she's really nice. And she's young, by the way. So at that time, I'm 24 and she's like 26, 27, something like that. Not that much older than me. But I didn't think about it like that, because at the time I'm like, okay, this is somebody I can really lean into and trust and really get to, work through this stuff. Like, I'm so ready. Like, I can't live like this anymore. So there was that desire to be better, to work hard on myself, to, do something with all this pain. And so I got into the boot camp. I'm going through it, and, progressively she's kind of picking certain people out that she likes. And it just happened to be me and a few other people, different ages. And we were in this relationship with her where she kind of made us feel more special. And throughout the boot camp, there's these moments where we'll stay on after for hours and she'd speak life into people. And so she would tell us things about ourselves, and some of the stuff was really accurate. So this is where a lot of my religious confusion came in, because some of the stuff made sense to me. Some of the stuff actually was my desires. But when I look back, sometimes I'm thinking, did I mention these things and then she used it later as God's word? Well, this is very embarrassing. So just give me a minute to work through this whole thing. So the boot camp's like 8 weeks, but there's all these one-on-ones, and it's getting closer and closer together. At that time, I don't have any of my family really to lean on, and we're kind of just on our own. We have Riley. I think Kelsey was pregnant with Ava. And so we're in this group, and she's getting closer and closer to me and to Kelsey. I'm not going to speak on Kelsey's part at all, just for me personally, but she's getting really close to us, and she's talking to me about all these things. And, like I said, there's all these Zoom calls and all this time spent with her where maybe the whole group does the boot camp and then stays on the phone till like 2 a.m. And we're just talking, and it felt like a community, and it felt like family, and it just felt like the missing piece of my life. And so obviously, and a lot of you who had followed me on Instagram, I'd posted things about it on my Instagram. Well, she decided to start a mini church. She said God was telling her to start a church, and then she kind of called us all without really knowing what that meant into being in these positions. She spent a lot of time with me specifically saying that I was a prophet. Now, let me slow down. Obviously, I grew up LDS, so not like an LDS prophet, but somebody who is prophetic. I think the definition of a prophet is somebody who is someone who speaks to people about God in a different way and has, revelations, things like that. So, like I said, there were a lot of things that I'd already believed and thought and had prior to meeting with her. And she played on that very well. And I think there is some spiritual stuff that goes on with this kind of thing. I do think she was dabbling in some serious stuff in the background. And so that's where those tricks and stuff can come in, is that, when people start playing with that demon realm, there's some powers over there too. That's how people are going to get deceived in the last days. And so, that's just, it is what it is. There's certain things you can do with the devil. It's never going to match up to God, but people can, I think there's a word for it. It's divination, I think. But they can make you think that they're getting answers from God, or they're hearing things from God. But at that time, I was just lost. And the documentary had come out, it hadn't come out. It was coming out, and I saw the raw version of it, and I bawled my eyes out. And I'm like, yep, here it is, like the 180 of everything that we talked about. The 180 of everything I wanted to give to the world about my family, and it was just case focused. And I don't know. So this relationship is forming, and she had moved to Nashville. And so she invited us to Nashville for this like big conference thing. And so we go to Nashville and meet her in our small little group. So we're in the house. I'm talking with her, but she's doing this weird thing where everything is about honor. And I'm already, like, at this point, I have so much shame on me from my childhood, my whole life. There's so much shame in my life, so it was really easy to, like, emotionally manipulate me. And so I spent so much time in this group upset with myself. She acted as if she spoke for God. And I'll give you reasons why, and I'll explain this. And this is again, reason why I talk about it all the time. Because it's real, and it's emotional manipulation and spiritual manipulation that makes people feel bad and makes them do things. So we go to Nashville, and she has a woman she's calling her mom. That's her spiritual mother. And so there's this like honor chain of her, like, you need to honor her, you need to honor me as my position. She was calling herself an apostle. I know. Stick with me here. I'm not arrogant. I know now, but in the time I thought I was learning new things that I didn't know. Again, I grew up LDS, so I didn't know how Christians got down. There's no other way to put that. I didn't know how Christians function. I didn't know what that was. I know that comes from Paul. So again, this is where the divination, or let's call it manipulation, because I can't think of the spiritual biblical word for it. But the way that people get you is they use like biblical terms, or they send you to Bible verses, right, to reinforce themselves. And so she called herself an apostle because Paul says if you're an apostle, then apostatize. If you're an encourager, something up to that degree. And that there's all these ranks. So she ranked people as prophet, apostle, evangelist, whatever. Everybody basically fell into some kind of category. And so again, the apostle had a very specific function, and this is what's being taught. Like, this is who you are. This is about like, this is like, strip your whole life apart. This is who God called you to be. And so, you know, with what I already knew about myself, about wanting to speak, about wanting to preach, I told you guys my mission story, how I felt like I failed God. So there's like a wound there when it came to things. So I'm like, maybe this is my opportunity to redeem myself with God and like become the person he wanted me to be, but it's just a different way than I saw it. So yeah, she's telling us all these things, but she's also making things about honor. And she made it really weird about how we had to honor her and honor her spiritual mother. Yeah, I'm going to tell you, there's going to be a lot of emotions come up because it's just a raw thing. But, you know, that was like this thing, like new, like we didn't understand. Nobody in that group knew what's going on. I think I was the oldest one in that group, mind you. I was 24. Everybody else was under that age, 23 to like 19, I think at the youngest. So we're all young, and we're all like people who are hurt. And so we're all just kind of like wanting leadership and guidance, and we all have different issues with parents or the way we grew up or anything like that. We're all just kind of there. And, you know, she's kind of at first, like, again, she's making us feel special. She's playing into the special. You are a prophet. You are going to do these things for God. God sees you. And I'm like bawling my eyes out because I'm like, all I ever wanted was to please God. She's not that much older than me at this time. She's like 2.5, 3 years older than me at this point. So she's like 26 or 27. I was like 24. Again, I know. Trust me. I've already criticized myself for a long time over it. But this is why it's hard to have this, you know, tell you guys this story, but hopefully this helps you understand my insight and / desire to never have this happen. And this is why I say this all the time. It's so accessible now. This was all done through social media. This was all done on Zoom until it became, you know, showing up in a physical state. So we show up in Nashville. The night we get there, there is a huge tornado warning. And we're up at like 1 a.m. We got in late, and we get up at like 1 a.m. hiding downstairs. So that way there wasn't a tornado that hit the house. So we're terrified. We didn't get any sleep. The next day is this huge, I don't want to say huge. Let me slow down. There's a meeting. I forgot what it was called, but there's a meeting there. And we got to this meeting, and this was the first time, you know, that I thought that we were going to be set free. This was called the Freedom Something meeting. And this was about, you know, when it comes to your time, you're going to feel the spirit, and you're going to have an encounter in a sense of like falling down or something to that degree. So we go to the meeting, and, you know, these experiences are happening, and I'm already buckling over because I'm already like at that point with God. So I'm crying, and they come over and they pray over me, and yeah, I fell out. I fell down. And then that to me was like, I kept thinking in my head, this is exactly what I mean. I'm just being honest with you because I've already dealt with the shame of it all. Warren says, Colby, it sounds like the Manson family all over again. Yeah, it was something. It was becoming something more. And it was on its way. It was on its way to being deeper and deeper. And I'll explain that in that reasoning. So I fall over. I'm having this encounter, okay? And I'm not ever going to belittle the movement of God, okay? Ever. But I've always, I never had anything like that happen. I'd seen it on TV. I didn't know what that was. I don't understand how the spirit moves like that. So there's a lot of things that are making me question this whole process. So while I'm there, while I fall out and I'm kind of just laying on the ground, I'm like, is this real? Did I do that? Is this real? And then I'm thinking, you're horrible for thinking that. You just had a movement of something happening. You can't believe that you think this way while you're in this moment. How could you possibly think that this isn't God? And, this whole thing. So there's a lot of, self-gaslighting that you have to do when you're in these situations. And so I'm like, I don't know what to think of all this. Obviously, I'm pushing myself kind of past my own comfortability. Well, she starts talking about being my spiritual mother. And again, back on a wound, she knows I don't have a mother. She knows I don't have a father. And so she's kind of trying to make it seem like this was what it was always meant to be. Like I was always supposed to take care of you spiritually. And again, I didn't know how I felt about any of this. What happened was we were at a point where she started really getting into our heads. And she started talking about soul ties and how items have soul ties and certain things have these ties to the people that they're involved with. Now, we can go back and forth on soul ties, but I don't know. I can't biblically right now argue the point of soul ties, but again, there was all this stuff about soul ties. Okay. And then we start getting rid of things that we thought might have ties to people like Lori. And I did something, at that time I was trying to break as if my life had never happened. If I felt like if I broke up with my past, it wouldn't be as effective. And I did, in a lot of ways, I remember the thing I regret the most, and the thing that I'm still hurt over is I went on Instagram and I unfollowed Tylee's account. And it's because I didn't want to even have access to see her. And her account's locked if you don't know that. And I unfollowed it thinking that was like me taking this necessary step, like stop living in the past. You don't need to see you. If you see her all the time, you're never going to move on. And I was just doing this weird breakup with myself. And, I got rid of all these things that I thought were attached to Lori, and I'm just in a spiral. I'm already messed up. This was not helping. And so I did those things in this moment of absolutely thinking that this was the best course forward. And so she's in our heads, like I said, and this is, I have to say, one of the worst times of my life. And, at that point I had decided to really just stop having a lot of my relationships for the same reason. And I was not happy about that, because I didn't know how I felt about any of this, but this is where I was at. So I stopped having a lot of the relationships I ever had. I blocked people on stuff, and I kind of just started doing what she was doing. Now, her abusive behavior was she was following me on Instagram, then unfollowing me. And I would just be like, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? And then follow me again, and then unfollow me. And like, these were bigger deals because it was not said, it was silent. Or I'd text her, or we'd have groups and text and not get responded to versus being really loved. And it was this horrible dynamic of like trying to be accepted by her. Because again, I don't know how I feel about all of this, but in that time, I'm just trying to do the right things. I don't know what that looks like. And I'm absolutely shattered, right? So I'm feeling like if she likes me, or if I'm in bad standing with her, I don't know what that means. I don't like to upset people in general. And now here I am having this whole experience where I'm like really, really don't know what she's doing. And so there's all this like pull you into a small group and then that's all you have. So that's exactly what happened. We were in this small group with these younger, we were all kind of in the same age range. And, you know, while we were there, we got in this big thing about honor, because we were having this conversation. We were like, we're really having a good time in Nashville. We don't want this to end. And I told her that. I said, look, we're all having this conversation. Like, we really don't want this to end. We don't want to go home to the normal life when all this has been, you know, this big experience for all of us and we're all here together. And there was fun, right? Like, that's always the point. It's never just, it's not just like you walk into, you know, a church and you're doing these horrible sacrifices. Like, it's always mixed in with these things. And so we were having, you know, a good time. And then the spiritual stuff was kind of layered. But you know, that's just why I think it's hard, because we were really enjoying having people and getting to know each other. We were becoming friends with the other people in the group. And she came up and like her spiritual mother leaves with her family, and she sits us down and she starts talking about how we dishonored her and how we're spending our time talking about not wanting to go home instead of being in the presence of the mother. And now that I like, when I think about it, like it genuinely gets in like the pit of my stomach. I get angry because this is not even funny. Like, this is beyond manipulation, and it's really sick to do this to people. But again, she's putting herself in a superior position. She's like, you guys are spending your time here and dishonoring her time, and this. I didn't even know what that meant, but all I knew is like, I don't want to upset anybody. And I didn't know she left because we were there. So we were really upset. And it was just very manipulative and made us all feel horrible and just shut the whole room down. It was really weird. It was very emotionally manipulative. So we go home and it's the same kind of thing, only it keeps happening, right? The same themes are coming. We're in these groups. We're doing this church thing on Sunday and we're doing the groups. And in the church sessions, she starts talking about how God was really angry with us. And she was standing in the gap because he was really upset with us. And again, I carry at that time an unbelievable amount of religious shame. So I'm thinking about everything I've ever done wrong. And I'm like, you know, I'm bawling. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, how do I stop upsetting God? Like it was horrible. And everybody else in there is crying. Because it's just, your heart is so ripped open, and yeah, you're vulnerable. And unfortunately, cult people specifically hit on people like that who are in vulnerable places. They see it. It's like a talent of theirs. They see vulnerable people and they smell it on them, and then they get to know them, and it goes from there. So yeah, we're home from Nashville, and you know, then she does. She's erratic. That's all I can tell you. She's erratic. She's, like I said, follows you, unfollows you, doesn't tell you why, stops talking to you, blocks you on Instagram and text, then unblocks you. You're constantly wondering what you're doing wrong. You're constantly thinking about how you could change your behavior. You're constantly thinking, what did I do spiritually? You're trying to get closer to God, and all you want to do is heal, and you're being abused. You're being abused all over again by a whole new person. So finally, she married, and I kid you not, this is how, I understand how ridiculous this is, so please understand this is why the channel is the way it is at a lot of times. She married Jesus. And again, I had my red flags, and I said, look, this is not right. Like, this is already, all of this is not right. She bought herself a ring and said she married Jesus. Now, she had all these encounters with Jesus. She wrote a book, and there's all these things. And at that time, I should have called her on her BS. I don't know. And I felt it. I was like, no, you did not. You did not marry Jesus. You bought yourself a damn ring. You can't buy yourself a ring and said you married Jesus. Jesus isn't your husband. Jesus is the church is Jesus's bride, bro. He doesn't need you to marry him. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just saying that's my personal belief. So she buys herself a ring and marries Jesus. All right. And then I don't know. She's going off the rails. And then her and her spiritual mother have a breakup, and she moves out. And this is right around the time where we're like, we have to tell her we're done. Or I don't remember if we even told her. I do remember we finally talked through it and said, I don't know if we blocked her or I think we blocked her and it was done. It was over. And other people in the group had it worse. And there was a relationship on the line about to be broken. I'm not going to tell you who that was or anything like that. She did speak on her experience, but she was super young, and she was being advised to get a divorce from her husband, and he was a bad person. I mean, how similar does that all sound? So we were not the only ones in the same exact place. And that's what it was. So we finally were like, this is it. Like, seriously, I don't know what this is, but it's not right. There's so many reasons why it's not right. And you think to yourself, why didn't I do this at the first red flag? Because I had them. It was instant. I didn't have, I didn't miss the red flags. I saw them, and I saw what was happening. And like I said, giving away your stuff and feeling like you're trying to please somebody, and hearing them talk about standing in the gap and doing all this stuff in your life. It's not cool. And it was really abusive, and it took a little too long. It wasn't like, again, this wasn't like a year worth of stuff. This was very quick. This was maybe 3 months at the most, maybe 4 tops, but not a very super long time. Again, this is, though, in essence, it was going to be a cult. So what was happening is they were basically, these two were business recruiting. I look at them from a business standpoint now, because they were life coaches and they were selling books. And again, now I see what it is. But in that time, I wasn't aware. The people took advantage of broken people to make $1. And so one thing she did is she tried to set me up to be delivered. Okay. So she sets me up with this dude she knows. And I think I had a call with him, and he's like, yeah, it's, I forgot what he said, but it's a charge to get delivered. I said, what? You're gonna charge me money so you can then free me of my demons? Can you show me where Jesus held out his hand and got a denarius for everything he did? Can you tell me when it became a financial gain to be a spiritual leader? And so, yeah, I remember that. Again, I didn't know anything about demons. I had grown up LDS, and LDS is not very demon heavy in a sense. This is all new to me. Oh, and I got baptized by her in a tub. My big ass in a tub, put my legs up, let her baptize like that. I'm telling you. And again, I'm very ashamed of not stopping those things. It never went to a level where any harm was done, anything to other than to me. I was the one that was hurt. My intentions were pure, and I kept trying to be, like this understanding person, being like, well, you don't know everything. You're new. And again, the baptism was the same thing. It was a true desire to want to be clean for God. And again, that comes from all that religious hurt. And again, I opened up to the wrong person, and I allowed her to put that position in. And again, that goes a little bit deeper. I'm going to touch on something that's probably really sensitive for everybody, but I already had wounds with a very authoritative woman in my life. And so that string was still there. And until that interview with Lori, I really just didn't cut all the way until that day. And so I was just really, vulnerable, and I didn't think of her like a mother by any means, but she was older than me, and I just allowed, myself to keep ignoring the signs of, hey, all these things this can't be good and bad like this, where you're so flip-flop. She canceled church on us one time because we were all bad. And I'm not kidding about that. She was like, well, you guys are too sinful today to go to church. I'm like, all right, well, no hope for us, right? We're just a bunch of sinners, a bunch of put us in hell already. Like, that's kind of where I was at. Sometimes I can be super black and white with that stuff. It's like, just put me in hell then. I'm so sinful to the point where Jesus can't save me because I'm too much of a sinner. Put me in hell, because what's the point? I'm trying my best. I'm trying to give you what I got. And you're telling me that I'm too bad to go to church and that we're too evil as a group to go to church. And she's calling people out for masturbating or watching stuff. And she's just saying, I think she's just saying random stuff and saying someone here. This is how I know now. This is how I know it now. But she's like, basically, you get a group of like, what, 50 people might be in these groups and these Zooms. Like, somebody here is smoking pot. Somebody here is masturbating. And it's like, it's just a blanket statement. But that's the manipulation when you don't see it, because everybody's crying. This is, I'm telling you, you get a bunch of adults to cry and be begging for help, and they're showing up because they're genuine. It's really sad. It's really sad to see that and to think about the hurt that was caused. And then it makes you think you're too bad again. Exactly, Sophie. When did Jesus say, "Oh, well, you're the I can't save you, brother. You are just that you'd want to die right there. If Jesus was like, "Bro, yeah, it's just too much. You're too dirty. I can't." But that's how we felt. And we couldn't get it right. And the problem is when you have a wound from anything, especially if it's parent wounds, not the devil's lettuce, exactly. But imagine going into, if I got all of you guys in groups, somebody here is drinking and somebody watched a bad show last night and somebody, did, and you're just like, there's not one specific person, but each person's already vulnerable and they're like, oh my gosh, you're talking about me, like you see me. It's really just a trick. It's all just a trick. I didn't learn that till I went through it. But, in that time, I'm praying. I'm trying to be a better person. I'm not really healing at all, by the way. There's really no healing coming out. All I've done is really spoke on certain things. So here's where it gets even more interesting. We do this ending with this thing. And by the way, I'm going to out her. I don't care. I'm not going to say her name. She's not from the U.S. All right. So she's living with her spiritual mother. They get in a thing. They called it a certain thing when you part ways. But all I'm hearing is that like, this is her actual spiritual daughter. We're always supposed to be here. Then it's like cut ties. This is how quick these relationships were cut. But being in the most intimate thing you could possibly have is spiritual family. That's what they made an emphasis on. Spiritual family is what God chose for you because he knew you weren't going to have your family. This is the kind of stuff that was being preached. Oh, well, I knew you weren't going to have your family and God knew you wouldn't have a family. So here's what he's giving you. This is a gift from God, right? That's how it's framed. And in my mind, I'm vulnerable. I would love to have people that I love. I love people. And I was like, I just want to be with people that I love. That's all I want. And I think that's what everybody wants, especially when you feel that lonely, when you're alone and you don't have a family anymore. And so, then she goes and she gets married to some dude after she was already married to Jesus. She said she wasn't going to marry anybody. Then she marries some dude. I'm 99.9% she did that for citizenship. Because that's just what I believe. And again, I haven't said her name. And if she's watching, you need to repent, homie. You son of a frick. Yeah, there might be some salt in those wounds still. But yeah, it was horrible. And so we finally get to all through this abuse for a few months. And it just got to the point where it got too much. So we blocked her. We said, we're done. This is like literally, I don't care anymore. By the way, we had left our iPad there we had just got. And we left it at the Airbnb they were staying at. And we texted her and asked her if she found it. And we saw that it was disconnected from our account. So she found it, opened it, kept it, and then wiped it for herself. I'm pretty sure the Airbnb host wouldn't have done that. Brand new, by the way. So real Christ-like there. And so anyway, yeah, we break ties. Guess what happens next? Here comes spiritual grandma. The lady that she had been there with swoops into everyone who's breaking away from her ministry. Comes swooping in, and she's different. She's nicer. She's a little more understanding, a little more grounded. the one that we did not honor, by the way, who we apologize. I sent a text to apologize for not honoring her. What the hell does that even mean? Are you the Queen of England? Do I need to bow to you? Like, it's not even about that. Honor should be given by the person, not demanded, right? Like Palm Sunday, Jesus walks in. The people who believed that he was honored him freely. Jesus did not walk in and say, down, bow. What is this, 50 Shades of Grey? You don't do that. You don't force people to honor you in your position. I don't even know you. I've never met you in my life, and I have to honor you. And so, yeah, it was a mess. So I apologized to her. This is the only interaction I truly had with her before all this. And she had come over. She made some fire dinner. I'm not going to lie. And so she comes swooping in, and she has a very different approach. She's a lot older than the other woman. She's like in her 40s, a lot calmer. She was just different, right? And she was a lot more grounded and a little less emotional up front than I would say, than the other one. So again, we're right back into this situation. Only she has a husband, and he and I start having these conversations. And I have a lot of spiritual questions. Because again, when you leave your religion that you grew up in, it's okay. So I'm just gonna be super frank with you guys. I've never really talked about this, but because I left the LDS church, it causes a very big rift. Okay. Your whole family thinks you're the one that left the chosen church. You are looked at very differently. If you do not get married in the temple, like they can say whatever they want. I'm not trying to make judgments for them, but you can tell that they're not, it's a big deal. It's a conversation around the table. Like, oh my gosh, did you hear Lori's son left the church? Like it's a thing in the church. I don't know if it's like that still. But that's how it was my entire life. So there's a lot of that fear of judgment, and after that, and then it's you grew up saying this is the true church. There's nothing more left in the world. You already were part of the true church. What is there else to find here? And again, you mix that in with all these wounds, God wounds. You mix that in with all these parent wounds. You mix it in with all these wounds. It becomes a conglomerate of hell. Okay, that's all it was. That's all I was at that time in every part of my life. I was just drowning. I don't know how else to say it. I just drowned, but I was alive, right? I really don't know much how else I could explain that. It was a constant state of every bad feeling, and you just keep waking up. And I'm not saying that that's not a blessing now, but in that time, I didn't have anything left in my tank, and it was just getting more and more empty. I'm running on nothing, and I still have to get up and exist, and that was hard. So when she swoops in, she's nicer. She takes this different approach. She starts really having these conversations. Again, I'm vulnerable. I'm trying to open up. I'm telling her about my personal struggles. I'm telling her about things that I've done. I'm telling her about my life. I'm telling her about things I experienced in my childhood. And I have not really got into those things with anybody else really. And so I was really vulnerable. And the documentary is giving me a bunch of stress, and I'm really upset and hurt over that. And again, I zoom out and think about them trying to take advantage of who I am, and knowing that they wanted to market themselves through me, which is very, very, very unfortunate to think that way. But I see what it was now. And I think that they knew that they were going to try to use me to market them. So I start meeting with her husband. He and I have men talks, which is, I'm not going to lie. It was nice to have someone to talk to as a man who understands what it's like to be a man, and a father and a husband. And so those were the themes that we really talked about, and it was just nice. So I'm meeting with both of them. So there's obviously a real relationship happening here. Then I do another deliverance, and in this time I'm also trying to prove to myself that I'm still working towards healing. And that's really where this is all coming from at that point, because the whole thing with her, with the spiritual mother, is over. But that was the initial reason why I did that. And then now with this other lady, it's the same thing. I still want to show and prove to myself, yeah, you're still working towards something. You do want to heal. You don't want to lay down for the rest of your life. Like, you truly do have enough gas to go. Or if you don't, you're going to keep trying to gas yourself up every day because you want to heal so you can be a better version of yourself, show up for your kids. Like that's what drove me, if I had any drive at all. And so in that time, man, there's other layers to that just, I can't even explain how hard that time was. That was, I don't know, as low as you can go in every way. And there's just so much trust in these spiritual leaders. And I'm praying to God on my own. I'm writing in journals. I'm bearing my soul here. I'm bearing my soul to God. I'm bearing my soul to try to fix everything. And there's not enough time to fix all that. Right? You can't just fix it. You're not a wall that can be patched. You're not a building that can be picked back up very quickly, or a construction crew comes in. This is a process. And I had to learn that the hard way, because that they kind of made it a notion that, once you go through deliverance, you go through a few times if you need to, but you should be cool. Like once the demons are out of you and once you're, moving forward, you should, these things won't exist. I don't really want to get into a whole debate on that, but still, that's kind of the framing of this idea. So I'm still obviously have my own issues and struggles. There's a lot of questions. And at that time, that's when I decided to write God Over Odds. And I was so vulnerable and raw when I wrote my book. And I wanted nothing more than to help people. And, that's all I cared about. Like I wanted that book to help everybody it possibly could. And so, again, all the praying, all the time, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's so much time individually with God, praying, writing notes. In that time, that's when I felt like I really did just hear clear as day, you're living in a graveyard, which was a great positive thing for me. But it also came in a time of a lot of confusion. Like, what the hell is this? Am I Christian? What am I? Like, what is this? What does Christianity look like? Do I go to this church? They like baptism more. They like singing more. They're evangelical, whatever it's called. They're heavy on demons. Like, everybody's got these different viewpoints. I was like, bro, this is confusing. Where do I land? Do I have to learn about all this stuff? I don't even know what I'm supposed to do here, And so I'm still confused. Never felt any peace. And this goes on for, again, a very short amount of time as well, maybe 2 months. And finally, we saw, and again, this isn't my experience to share, but Kelsey found things online that she was doing. The grandma spiritual mother, let's call her that. She was rating her own books and with pen names on Amazon, promoting herself, commenting on her own stuff. And it's just like, that's not what people who are authentic do. And we're talking about life coaches to the level of like writing calendars, like all kinds of helpful tools, things that are supposed to be helpful for people. And they, they're gaining these followers. And that's what made me the most sick after all of this is the fact that there are so many people who come into this whole idea of life coaching and mixing and helping people. But I don't know if they get sidetracked. I don't know if they had bad intentions from the beginning. I don't know if they just don't make enough money and so they just become manipulative. I don't know. I'm sure everybody's different. But I see all these people following and following her routines and following and buying her books, and it's not getting them anywhere. And that's where you think it's God. And that's what I learned throughout this whole process. If you really want to know the true lessons of all of this, I learned how a cult functions. I learned how they pull you in. I learned how they make you feel. I learned how they abuse you. They isolate you. They put you up financially. everything, especially when it comes to religion. I think it's a little bit more deep because they're already pulling on really, important parts of your life. And then I also learned, about how that you should find God through your own will and desire to find him. And what I mean by that is you truly, the best time I ever had and the worst time I ever had when it came to God was in 2020, when I just read my Bible and I felt like I was supposed to just restart because I was so confused. So I just started reading the New Testament. That's it. Just me and the Bible. And during COVID, the kids were missing. I'm praying for them every day. I'm praying. It was just crazy. But that was the time that I really got there, right? That was all just me going out of my way to try to make an effort to understand things. Where I really went wrong is I allowed myself to think that somebody was going to lead me to the water. There's nothing wrong with, leading people, but it gets taken advantage of, especially in these religious contexts. I hit on this all the time. I'm sure you've heard me say this, but be really careful who you're following, whose advice you're taking. I listen to people say things and I just, it's like these motivational quotes people make, or it's just certain things I just really don't agree with. I have my own opinion on a lot of it, but just be really careful. There's people who act like they're so enlightened, and I would just love to hear why. Simple questions. What gave you enlightenment? Right? What's your experiences to where you could tell me why you have this opinion, rather than people who are just really good at motivating or quoting or making a TikTok, whatever. The point is, of all of this, a goal of mine ever since that time, I never thought I'd tell you guys about this. I'm not going to lie, because there's so much still. It's just, you can feel it. It's scarred over, but it's definitely a wound in my life. There's so much shame as being, just even going to that place and believing her in any capacity, or getting wrapped up in it the second we left. You know what I mean? I just immediately gone through that cycle. Like, I can't believe I followed any capacity of it. And, I will say I truly did have the red flags, and I truly did just kept trying to understand rather than believe myself. And, that's a mistake I'm not ever going to make again. And I made that changed my life in the better, for the better. And, it was funny because it was kind of like this horrible landslide, but it also was the best lessons in the worst ways. I think maybe that's sometimes how it works. But the documentary came out and it just made me say, like, okay, you just don't trust everybody with everything. You don't give everybody everything. You truly have to learn, people's intentions, to get close to them, find the right people, find the right therapists, find people you trust, and you don't just open your door and allow people to come in there and F stuff up. They just don't. But I tell you this story, all of this, because it's so important to me to share this with you, because this is happening. I was in groups with 20, 30 people, and then the church thing was like getting higher and higher each week. People are getting deceived in every way. And again, it breaks my heart, because the saddest part is the people who are doing it 95% of the time, they're really genuine. They really want something, and they really want to be better. And then they get manipulated and abused, and who knows how this stuff goes. We've seen the worst of the worst. I think Chad and Lori's is one of the worst it possibly gets, other than like the online cult that has kids taking their own life that we spoke about the other day. But this stuff is becoming this mentality, this group mentality of people getting together and following a person or an ideal, one of the two. And it's so prominent because we have social media, we have all these things, and people are getting duped into believing that this is like their salvation or their group or this lie that these people are coming in and spreading all over the place. I'm going to say something funny. I can't tell you how many times we've had people come into our chats or comments and call this the cult of Colby. I don't understand how in the world we're running a cult. I think you should probably go do some research. We don't indoctrinate over here. We discuss things. And I don't think you could do anything more than just talk about your opinion. And if you don't like the opinion, that's fine. I am not here to force you. I just think that's so ridiculous that people come in. The cult of Colby is here. Like, what the fuck? How is this the cult, bro? Seriously, how? How is this a cult? I don't understand that. There's no worshiping happening here. This is just a bunch of people who talk about things. I don't understand that, but it gets me every time. It used to really upset me, and now I'm like, this is ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. Mima Bay, did I hear Colby right? You lived in Rexburg. Yep. So we moved to Rexburg late 2020, December 2020. And we moved in like April. Very, very, very short amount of time. So it was winter, and then we left back to Arizona in the summer. It was a time. I don't know. We met a lot of good people there. Things were not the meningitis cult. You don't want to be in the meningitis cult. If there is a meningitis cult, I swear on my life, you do not want to be in it. I would gladly not be a member of that meningitis club. I'm not even gonna say cult. Meningitis cult. Yeah, I know, right? I'm telling you, people just are so negative. They think everything is so deceptive. I don't understand that. It's like, you just have no context, obviously. And again, this is where I hope this never sounds like I'm trying to sound arrogant or like anything, but I'm like, if you don't understand the definition of what you're saying, you probably shouldn't say it. Like, you should literally just start. You know who taught me this? My boss taught me this. It's actually a great way to go about your life. It stops you from feeling, it stops conversations from going the wrong way. When you stop and define words, it saves conversations from going the wrong way. Because if you say a certain word, you have to understand let's define that. Let's stop the game, stop the conversation, define what we're discussing, make sure we understand the parameters, and then discuss it. And that has made a world of difference. So if you don't know the definition of a cult, then we shouldn't have the conversation about a cult. But I can tell you for a fact that, I experienced it, and it wasn't one of those cults that gets you to do, horrible things, but it doesn't matter, because to me, that there was horrible things that happened. It just didn't happen to anybody else. It happened to us. It happened to me. And so that's the point, is cults do multiple things, but they're very similar, right? They have one leader or two, right? They create ideals. They get you to isolate. They get you to remove things from your life to get closer to them and then become dependent on them. And then they completely control whatever happens from there. That's very, very classic cult. And it's very what Jody Hildebrandt did. It's very what Chad did. It's a lot of stuff that is similar. If you just look across, that's what they do. And they get you to buy into it. And then the more you get emotionally or financially or whatever your currency is to them, it really pulls you into a point where now it's all of your life. And so if you give it up or something happens, it could be detrimental to you, or you're scared about the consequences if it's a dangerous person. So it's very, very multi-layered, but regardless, it can really put that in position. Those women know who they are, and I think they know what they're doing. It's hard to believe they don't. I've debated on to say names, but I've just gone to a point where I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if it's worth that. It's just the point being, they're not making people's lives better, and they're taking money, and they're taking They're taking some kind of currency from people to heal them, to help them. I've always told you guys, there's two things that I've always struggled with the finances. Number one is church. I don't think Jesus ever intended on it being a literal physical financial transaction for you to receive God. If that were the case, that'd be really unfair. Even tithing itself is not a forced thing. It's supposed to come from everything's supposed to come from you, your choices, and how you feel. So that's kind of where that needs to stay. I'd love to. This is why, again, I'm telling you the story because this is why cults really hit home in my life, and you guys know why. There's multiple. It's just around me, unfortunately. So the only good I can do is expose these cults. The only thing I can do is explain to people how if you're in a cult right now and you think it's this good thing, you can start to see the signs. You can get out quick. And the thing is, the patterns I see, unfortunately, outside of Chad and Lori, and maybe with Jody, I'm sure there's a lot of, couple stuff there, like older people who are married or whatever the case may be. But a lot of cults focus on the younger generations, the ones who are lost, as people like to say, because they don't have their path in life. They're just figuring it out. And so they want answers. And so that's an easier person to say, hey, I'll tell you what you need to do. That's what I think a lot of people want, that because it's so hard to figure everything out. So, it's really important for me as a person to continue to talk about cults, religious cults, expose it. I don't care if it's Christian. I don't care if it's Catholic. I don't care if it's LDS. I don't care if it's Buddhism. I don't care what it is. They can take that core belief idea and twist it and turn it into a whole nother thing until you are down shit's creek, There's really no other way to go about it. So, yeah, I had to tell you guys. I appreciate you guys being graceful. It's not an easy conversation to have. I'm just telling you. There's an embarrassment that, this woman who's like barely older than me is like, I'm your spiritual mother. And, she made me cry. Oh man, that's just so crazy to do that. It's just so crazy to freaking allow yourself to be put in that position. You learn lessons, man. You've got to learn. I had to learn a lot of hard lessons in my life, bro. It's not fun. She made me cry so hard, bro. She had me literally questioning my life, bro. And it's not funny, but it's funny. I was questioning everything all the time. And then it's just like, damn, can't catch a break here. It was hard. I'm not gonna lie. That was effed up. And so what happened was a lot of the people who were in that got out. I only saw one dude who I don't think he really made it out. I don't know if he did now, but at that point, you're kind of looking at people like you're finding them on Instagram. You're kind of like trying to keep up with them because like you want to kind of discuss this. And we only had one conversation. It was with one of the girls who was actually closest to the spiritual mother leader. She was the one that was told you need to get a divorce, basically, and like trying to break her whole life down. The whole idea was they wanted us to move with them, and they're talking about getting like a charter bus and a house complex, and we're all going to live in a house complex. We're all going to charter together on a bus. What the hell? What the actual hell is that? Like, they thought they were building this thing. And it's, again, what did Chad do? Same thing. Gather people, get them to all be together, get them to all live together. It's a fucking embarrassing, bro. Sorry, I didn't mean to cuss. But obviously, it was never to that degree. We never moved. We really didn't ever. We didn't do anything we didn't do things blindly. I'll tell you that. There was no like, do this and then everything was just go, right? But that's how they work. And again, she was framed like her social media. Her social media was promoting her. She didn't look dangerous. She was younger. And so it's almost like, okay, she understands this generation, right? Like we're literally the same generation. I don't know. It's just all these different aspects. And she sold it. That's the best thing. You want to know what I've noticed in cults? Somebody's a good salesman. They sell the shit out of their cult. Sorry, I keep cussing. I guess I got heated during that. They sell themselves very well. And they keep up an appearance, and they do it for a good amount of time, however long it takes to get you as close in as they need you. And I just think about, if I wouldn't have not left, what would that have looked like? And I can tell you right now, it would have just got worse and worse, and there would have been financial, she would have got so much money. Like it's just exactly what I watched in the Netflix documentary. Luckily, we had enough sense to say, we're done. We're not doing this. And I will say, spiritual grandma. I can't, bro. Spiritual grandma was actually way less intense, and there wasn't blocking. There wasn't the social media thing. Just so much different. So I think that's what made her seem different. But yeah, spiritual grandma just went it just went differently. But again, we got out of both. So, let me end the story. I didn't even tell you the story. We were going on a walk. We had hard time in our lives, hard time. And we just talked through it. And Kelsey and I both felt the same thing in the same way, like just the level of peace of leaving and telling them. We actually did tell them. So I told the man I was talking to, spiritual grandma's husband, I said, hey, I just don't feel like we're supposed to continue. Thanks for what you've done. Again, not everything is always negative. There's always some kind of positives. He and I had some really good talks. I told him some vulnerable stuff. I opened up about some things about my life, myself, things like that. And, I was like, thank you for everything. And we're just going to walk away. At this point, we don't feel right about continuing a relationship at all. And that ended that. But I remember that day, I felt like I was a bird, bro. My soul felt free, and that's how I knew that everything was as bad as it was. But it really did become, the other issue became, okay, well, we just gave up the only people we had, and I gave up people that I had got these relationships with, and now there's nobody to have this relationship with. So like there was a toll. There was a toll there in that side. And what the thing that's so hard about this is, like, it's choosing that hardship, because no one told us to go be a part of that group. It was all framed as positive. It was all framed as good, and it was about healing. It was about getting better. It was about facing this stuff. It was about spiritual and mental healing, and getting together with a group of people who are younger and like-minded, and you know what I mean? It was all framed perfectly. And just like kind of what Jody was doing with connections, empowering people, addressing certain truths, saying certain things that you could tell are parts of the LDS church, and then turning that into their own thing, and then just really drowning you after that, right? Like after that, you're just drowning with whatever the cult leader is doing. So yeah, man, no more spiritual grandma, no more spiritual mom, no Lori. It's just me, baby. And I just, obviously I'm not gonna lie, like it really took a toll on my belief system for a long time, because I was already messed up. There's so many layers of spiritual confusion, let's just call it that. And just question after question, and experience and bad experiences, and it was just hit after hit. And those things took major tolls. I'll just tell you that. And it was really hard to I never blamed God for anything. I've never blamed God. I'm just not the type to think that God is at fault. I think that for me, I've always gone to God and said, I just need your help. I don't know how to make it through this, because I don't think God put that in my way to see how I'd respond. You know, I have caught myself saying, how do you expect me to keep doing this? What do you want me to do with this? This is just overwhelming. I don't know. In the most sassy way, I guess I said, I don't know who you think I am, but I can't keep going like this. But everything that I've experienced bad has been turned into good. And I hope to have an impact on people who are getting deceived on social media and pulled into these groups. And, you know, when we watched that video of that lady and the rocker, we'll call them the rockers, okay? And they were praying about Chad and Lori, and they did 30 minutes, 40 minutes of a prayer, and they're just, and God said, as Lori's not and Chad are innocent, and homie's just like this. Yeah, okay? In that, I saw comments. And in those comments, people are like, this is so of God. This is so prophetic. Remember, we went through the comments together. And that's where I'm like, I got to be louder. I got to say more stuff. I got to talk about it more. Because I can't stand that. The deception leads people to things, to extremes. We've seen it. Extreme belief of something that's wrong and not understanding who God is will lead people to do unbelievable things, right? Some people are so ashamed they take their life. People get divorced. People break up their families. People commit crimes. People kill over this religion thing. Elizabeth Smart got kidnapped and used as religion, which, by the way, we're going to cover Elizabeth Smart's new documentary. That stuff really just, I don't know how else. The other way I can think to combat a lot of this is to talk about it. So we have to be able to have these conversations, and you guys are a rare breed that want to engage in this stuff. You know what I mean? This is not a fun, sexy topic. These things are not fun. They're not enjoyable. And I can admit that. I understand that. But that part of me feels a push on a consistent basis. And without you guys understanding the context of why talking about cults matters, there's a missing piece to the puzzle, I guess, for me. So for you guys to understand that was important. Thank you for being gracious and not making fun of me. You have every right to make fun of me right now, because some of that stuff is such a cringy, hurtful, just what the hell were you thinking? But, you know, I've learned my lessons, and I look at that experience now as something that I can do something about, right? And that is to share it with others. And hopefully, you know, what we can do is really help the next person. Kim, what can we learn? When you break this stuff down, it exposes what cults do, and that helps people who get sucked into cults. I don't think people realize how common cults are. Everybody has an idea. I guess for me too. I'll tell you a personal story. I did not believe Lori was in a cult, because I thought cults were basically like the KKK or something of that degree. I had a one single track. This is what a cult is. Like, again, understanding the definition. People don't understand that being pulled into a group like that starts out innocent and then becomes something more and forces them to do things. And it can be it can blind you and come at you quick. So that's what we're learning. We're teaching people to be aware. It's awareness. It's that simple. These conversations need to be happening more often. They shouldn't just be passed over, or, hey, you know, again, I haven't talked about this in years, and because I was embarrassed. But that feels pretty selfish at some point. You're just like, look, at some point, if I tell people, who knows who else has been affected. But I personally saw like hundreds of different people cycling through one person that I was attached to that was doing this stuff. Each one of their lives could have been affected deeply. So you learn and you grow. And then not on top of that do you learn, but you help and possibly see signs of people who are doing these things. Again, why do we extensively cover Lori? Because her personality type exists out there. And there's other people who are doing things like Lori who follow in suit, like Ruby, like Jody, like Chad. Those things exist. So somebody talking about that allows conversations to happen in other circles to the point where you never know if you could be somehow a preventer, you know? And that's the hope. Somebody catches something somewhere early on, learn from the mistakes of the people who have had to crawl on glass so others can walk on meadows. If you really truly want to understand why we talk about that healing, it's that metaphor for me. I crawled on glass so others can walk on meadows, right? It sounds whatever. I made it up. That's how I feel. I went through hell so other people could not have to. And that's what I think I've done on YouTube with others. People sharing their knowledge saves me having to truly go learn that lesson, right? I can take and understand from what they say, from their experiences, and learn a lesson they learned. That's the point. I want to say what's up to Brandon. I saw you pop in. Kira, Tess. No, you're good. You're good. It's good to have you. That's the point, though. Just know, like, this, the reason I specifically want to talk about this also is if you see this in the Christian community, there needs to be a conversation here. You see people charging out of their butts for help, for religious help, for deliverance. I'm immediately going to say, I, with all my heart, can honestly say I think that they're in the wrong. Being a life coach is just, there's only a few people who should be life coaches, and it's just the most broad thing. Oh yeah, I'm a life coach. What are you teaching? You can't just do it. You can't just get involved in people's lives and just do random stuff. I have a really big problem with that. So people just call themselves a life coach, but guess what? Being a life coach doesn't really have a credentials in a lot of senses. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. It can be sketchy if people don't have good intentions. They just want to make money off of things and expose and make money off of somebody coming to them with all their stuff, and they can't even give you advice like legally. I don't know. This is happening all too often though. It's on TikTok, it's on Instagram, it's all over YouTube. You'll find them and they're influencers and they're selling you a specific product to gear towards the people who are hurting in life and want answers. You know? And again, I originally thought charging for therapy is wrong, but like you can't just do it for free. So really in therapy, I think you're charged because of the time of therapy. You're not being charged to be healed. The person who's charging has to make a living. And so they're charging for their time, for the time that they're spending with you. And they're also went to school and did an extensive amount of work. And I respect that. But before I was like, it shouldn't be charges for helping people. But when it comes to therapy, it's very different. But when it comes to people pretending to be life coaches, and I don't know. That's just all I'll say. You don't want to hear me rant about that. So anyway, that was my experience. Hopefully you guys learned something or know somebody who could benefit from it. Send them this way and they can watch me embarrass myself. It's fine. But I appreciate you guys and love you. I will be back with you probably tomorrow. And if you are a Patreon, we do have a live today at 4. We're going to be talking not too long from now. So about 2 hours for me. And yeah, really do appreciate you guys. Thank you for our community is amazing. Again, I always repeat this. To have people who don't judge, listen, and just thank you. Thank you for creating a safe space. I think it's huge. So thank you guys for that. Mods, appreciate you. Love you. And to the rest of our community, you know I love you. Probably back tomorrow. I know it's Saturday, but we missed yesterday and we got some other things to cover and to talk about. We're still talking about Jeanette McCurdy's book, and we're going to be talking and reviewing Elizabeth Smart's documentary. It's really crazy. I just had really learned who Elizabeth Smart was just a few months ago. I was being asked, have you heard of Elizabeth? I think this might have been around CrimeCon. And I was like, no, I've never heard a story. So I watched that series on YouTube. It was like a documentary style thing, and I only got to see the first part, and then I watched her movie, and I was like, oh my gosh. Then I researched her, and she's this strong, incredible woman. I'm like, whoa, this is insane. So I want to talk about that, and we'll get into it. So we got some stuff to get done this week. Other than that, appreciate you guys, man. Love you. See you soon.